Hello and welcome to Shought Thorts Duo, a special extended episode of the bite-sized interview show where I ask a creative couple from the gaming industry a bunch of somewhat silly questions. My name's DC Bradshaw, and my guests today are Bex and Steph of Lucky Fox Studio. Thanks for joining me.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. For those that don't know you, could you please describe the creative thing or things you do, but only using words of one syllable?
We make cool stuff for games.
Mine with your ears.
Mine for your eyes.
I mean, not only did you do it, but that was poetry. That was magnificent.
Vaguely haiku.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm incredibly impressed. I mean, honestly, that's the meanest question out there. And, people do various attempts at it, some better than others. But every so often someone is like, oh, wow, you prepared this really well. I gave you a horrible challenge and you just knocked it out of the park. So well done. All right, question 2. If you were pirate captains, what would be the name of your ship or ships?
We talked about this.
Yeah. The only thing that we could come up with that was linked to our name was like the Flying Fox. But then we're like, that's not very nautical. So maybe it could be like an airship. Maybe it could be like some kind of like steampunk pirate kind of setting.
Absolutely. No one said it had to be in the water. So I'm imagining like Captain Shakespeare's ship from Stardust or something. Or full-on steampunk, sort of Zeppelin-y sort of thing. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's it. Yeah. Cutting through the clouds on the steamship.
Marvelous. And I noticed you decided to go for one singular ship.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be on a different ship.
Aww. Or a little fleet.
Yeah. Wait, how do the kids do it these days? It's not like this.
Yeah.
This
aging
is showing my age.
It's got to be like that. No thumbs.
No,
Is that right? Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. Yeah, one ship.
Oh dear. What are your favorite just mindless fun popcorn movies?
So Bex introduced me to one that she had on DVD from her childhood, and that's become a firm favorite. We actually get out the DVD and put it on, and it is Galaxy Quest. So good.
So good. It's so good.
It is just wonderful.
It's an excellent film.
You do still get people who've not seen it before, and it's like, no. Just go and enjoy it because it is just spectacular.
The acting, the storyline.
It's so quotable. It's great. And of course, Alan Rickman.
Of course. Yeah.
Alan Rickman is magnificent.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, everyone is. And when you look at the cast, I remember when I first saw it, I knew some of them. I knew Alan Rickman. I can't remember what I knew him from, but I knew of Alan Rickman. And I knew, good grief, I can't remember the guy's name. The captain.
Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, isn't it?
Tim Allen. I knew him from like Home Improvement.
Tim the Tall Man Taylor.
Yeah. I don't think I'd actually seen something with Scrawny Weaver in when I first saw it, because I hadn't seen Alien yet or anything like that. And then I saw it, obviously, some years later and went, it's Scrawny Weaver. What's she doing? This is brilliant.
So funny.
Right? Yeah, you go back, and the more you watch it, the more you find to laugh at and to enjoy.
So that's like a feel-good film. But we were painting minis the other night, and we were put on Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Just kind of in the background. Jurassic Park is also
Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Sometimes Bex is making 3D models, and I just like listen, and through the headphones I can hear the roar of the dinosaurs. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I know what's going on over there. She's watching Jurassic Park in the background.
Yeah.
It's when you see the drink on the desk is doing the vibrations like the T-Rex. That's when you know you've got a good bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you could have miniature versions of 2 mythological or fantasy creatures as pets, what would they be?
So I went back and forth on this one a little bit. Firstly, I was like, Pegasus, because it's like, pony, but pocket sized. But then I was like, it's a nightmare because, you have to close all the windows or get out and this kind of thing. So I decided to go for something practical. I decided to go for the goose that lays the golden eggs. And then like Steph was like, but if it's tiny and it's pocket sized, they're going to be like little mini eggs. But I reckon, like, how often does a goose lay an egg? By the end of the year, you probably have several kilos of gold. So I mean, like,
entire gold.
I mean, but yeah, it all adds up in today's economy. It's not going to turn it down.
A very practical suggestion that no one has come up with, so I like it.
Thank you.
But also, so then I was like, but a mini dragon would be fun. And then can fly around you and like, you know, light your candles. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now that you say you will have a mini pile of gold for my mini dragon to guard.
I mean, guard or hoard. Like I'm thinking of like selling or investing the gold nuggets. We're not going to be able to do that if we have like mini Smaug.
My dragon is not going to be happy.
No.
We're going to have to talk about this.
Yeah. Not a great plan.
I imagine sneaking every morning, just like, okay, there's 2 eggs. We'll leave one that Smaug can get, and one is getting squirreled away somewhere.
Yeah, so the dragon's happy.
Brilliant. Yeah. This might be a side note, but when Bex and I first met, she asked me a question, and you mentioning Pegasus made me think of this.
Oh.
And it was, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses
or 1 horse-sized duck?
Or 1 horse-sized duck? Are we allowed to ask you the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard this one before, and I don't know. The fact they're ducks, I think I'm going to go. I don't know. I think the army of tiny horses is probably safer, because a giant duck, I think, would be quite terrifying. Where we used to live before, up in Scotland, there was an area of water nearby, and there were lots and lots of ducks, and there were geese as well. You know, and actually, if a goose has decided that you have irked it in some way, they can be quite scary. So I think a giant duck, I think, I mean, hopefully it would be very tame and, you know, rideable. I think a rideable giant duck would be quite cool. But I think if it doesn't like you, I think that would be terrifying. Whereas the tiny horses, I think, hopefully, the tiny little kicks would be annoing, but I think you'd manage.
Yeah. If you swap out the ducks for geese, it changes the equation completely.
It really does.
Suddenly, the scenario is terrifying because they are quite vicious.
True.
But actually, that's a really good point. You don't see much ducks as mounts in fantasy settings, which is missing a trick there, because they're like the ultimate amphibious mount. You can do air, land, and water. And then if you get one that lays golden eggs,
I now want to make, I think, not even tabletop RPG, I think that's a board game. I want some sort of duck racing game for kids where you play, you're riding giant ducks around a racetrack or something. I think that would be fun.
Yeah. Right.
And like as you say, almost like a triathlon, you know, where you've got to do like land, air, and sea. I think that could be fun.
Gonna happen.
Absolutely.
That's it. Great.
We'll do it.
We'll do it.
Brilliant. Okay, perhaps less wholesome this one, but who knows? Question 5. What are your favourite swear words or phrases that aren't actually swearing?
We watched. Steph's a sucker for like home reno programs.
Okay.
Like when we are like very low battery and we need to watch something, that's often what we end up doing. And there was a scene in one yesterday where they were like mid reno and someone broke into the site and stole some of the tools and described the thieves as toe rags.
Great word.
And Steph turns to me and he goes, "What's a toe rag?" And I had to kind of explain. So I think right now you're kind of like slipping that into conversation.
Yeah.
Where you can.
As an Australian, a lot of the British sayings or like slip-ins are very funny to me. And so it's things like that. Yeah. Or just basically saying anything.
Yeah. Adding absolute or utter in front of any noun turns it into like an insult.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, you know, you absolute spanner, or I don't know what else.
You utter cordial.
Yeah.
Looking at what we've got, you know.
It is the tone, isn't it? It's how you're saying it and the context you're saying that you literally, the word doesn't matter. It really doesn't.
Yeah. So it just ends up being very funny.
But toe rag is a good one. My dad has always been a fan of toe rag, you know, so every so often I use it.
Yeah.
Toe rag, yeah.
There are some Australian ones. I don't know if you've heard this, but sometimes someone will be like, you mole. And Bex, when she first heard that on an Australian program, was like, would repeat it for days. You mole. Yeah, mole. Don't know what it means.
Just it's like a silly person, doesn't it? Yeah. I hope that's what it means.
Almost without the meaning, you kind of get from the context. It works.
Yeah.
It works.
It's all.
And I love this little cultural exchange you clearly have.
We make it that.
Ridiculous phrases people say. Okay, question 6. If you had to sing a Disney song at karaoke, separately or together, what would you choose?
My favorite Disney film was always The Jungle Book growing up, mainly because of the music. And so I knew like every word of every song. And then it turns out that Bex also knows all of the words, and both of us know the trumpet solo.
Yeah, no, like the
In
jazzy
jazz scat in I Want to Be Like You.
Yeah.
Oh, marvelous.
Sometimes we just jam out to that in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can happen. And obviously you've got like one sings a line, the other one scats, and then vice versa. And then you both just go for it on the muted trumpet solo.
Yeah. You know what? Another one that's good on that is Everybody Wants to Be a Cat from the Aristocats.
I don't know.
You don't know
You're going to have to do that one a lot.
Okay, we're going to have to learn that one.
No,
I can't do it.
Oh, we're going to have to
you'll
learn
love that one.
Okay.
Again, it's jazz.
There you go.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
I love the fact that, I mean, I Want to Be Like You is an amazing song, but I like the fact it started cropping up on albums, like it was on Robbie Williams' second Swing album.
So good.
And it's like, I remember seeing the track list thinking, oh, this is going to be a pretty good album.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a pretty good album. And I listened to it, it's like, oh, this is the Jungle Book. This is magnificent.
It creeps in everywhere. But some of the music is just so good, and especially from that kind of era of Disney. Like we watched again Lady and the Tramp, and that like he's a tramp, but they love him. Like when you watch that again, and I think there was something on the internet, actually, it was on social media, where they put the singer singing it next to the actual cartoon of it.
Fantastic.
And you can just really appreciate the music and the musicality in it. I mean, not saying that the modern ones are also like, I mean, yeah, modern Disney and the music.
Not lacking for bangers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Great phrase. But yeah, some of that old kind of jazz style stuff I love.
If you could each have a magical item to make your day-to-day lives just a little bit easier, what would it be?
This was an easy one for Bex.
Yeah. I feel, actually, you know what? I feel like, okay, so we kind of like thought about this already, and we kind of came up with items that are very similar. So maybe it'd be like the same thing, but of two uses.
Okay.
Go on.
So I have ADHD. So if I were to have a magical item, it would be like the jewel of motivation, and it would be like a rock, like a pet rock. You stroke the rock and you are immediately infused with incredible enthusiasm and energy and motivation to just go and do the things. And then Steph is kind of the absolute flip side of that and has trouble stopping and resting.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe if you stroked the pet rock, then it would like, I don't know, sing you a little lullaby and like get you to kind of like slow down and rest a little bit.
That's cute.
Yeah.
It would walk me out the door. Like, go for a walk. Stop.
Something like that, yeah.
I think the stop-go rock, I think that's a good call. I'm not assuming anything. I imagine the stop could also be useful. Do you hyper-focus as well every so often?
Yes.
Yeah.
I do. The rock would occasionally whisper at me to like go hydrate or like stand up from my desk.
It's 3 a.m. Just stop. Just stop doing the thing.
You don't need to know about axolotls. Go to bed.
Everyone needs to know about axolotls. They are
true. That's true.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
That example.
Question 8. What books do you think everyone should read?
I'm much more of a non-fiction reader.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I think about books that have had a big impact on me, I think I'd probably start with Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. She's a social worker storyteller, and she talks a lot about vulnerability and how she kind of describes it as like the core central ingredient in all of creativity and personal growth and endeavor, and how you can't have any of those things without being willing to show vulnerability. And she particularly talks about this quote of like the man in the arena who, if he fails, at least fails whilst daring greatly. I think it's a quote from was it Roosevelt or one of the US presidents? But the central idea is that the arena is full of people who are sat, in the stalls just watching, and it's very easy to kind of criticize if you're just watching. But unless you are in the arena, if someone isn't willing to be in the arena with you, their input doesn't count or shouldn't count as much. And anyone who is in the arena may succeed in whatever challenges that they're trying to overcome, or they may fall short, but at least they put themselves in there, and that is kind of like never really a losing thing. Is kind of central to the philosophy. And that, I think, having read that, I've kind of taken that forward, and it's affected me in my creative pursuits a lot, I think.
Oh, marvelous.
Yeah.
Love that.
And I would say, actually, yeah, Brené Brown has been an incredible Yeah, similarly, I'm also a nonfiction
Mm-hmm.
person, and we'd actually both read those books before we'd ever met.
Oh, wonderful.
And so a part of our kind of connection was actually bonding over emotional vulnerability and some of that messaging.
I'm curious, did you kind of come with different perspectives, having read them separately and compared notes, or did you have a similar sort of response to it?
Oh, that's a good question. I remember we talked about it actually in our first date.
Yeah.
It was very relevant to your work because at that time you were working in charity for a charity which was focused on kind of conflict management and emotional intelligence and things like that. And I had read it primarily from a professional creative kind of viewpoint and how it could assist me, because I think that creatives and being a creative is a kind of inherently vulnerable thing. You pour some of yourself into a work and then you put it out there and submit it to the judgment of others. It never really seems to get any easier, and it can be a very difficult and sometimes quite painful process. So I think that was kind of my approach to it, was primarily as someone who was kind of concerned with vulnerability in my professional life.
And I think I hadn't read that one in a while. And when we first met, I had been reading, there are two others that really impacted me, Dare to Lead, which is her book around leadership and leading teams. And at that stage, I was a director in a charity, and there was a lot around being vulnerable as a leader and how you hold yourself and kind of promote an environment where people can be themselves, can express their needs, while also kind of expressing potentially some of that criticism. So I was coming from that perspective. And then another one of hers, which is called Braving the Wilderness. That one, the standout quote in there is about having strong back, soft front, and wild heart. So it's about kind of having the strength, but also the vulnerability. So strong back, soft front, and then kind of being able to live your dreams and your truth in that. So there's a lot to chat through.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. I love these conversations because I either get recommendations of poignant kind of fiction, really touch them because of the story and the characters involved, or a few people have dabbled in non-fiction, and some particularly in kind of self-awareness, self-reflection sort of areas. And that's always wonderful to hear. It's interesting what you said about and both those points, actually. I mean, I used to be a teacher, so it is incredible the sheer number of people in leadership positions and in business as well, but actually in the teaching profession as well, who are so afraid of losing face that actually, they will avoid conflict at all costs. And it's like, no, that doesn't work with kids, and that doesn't work if you're leading a department or leading a school or something like that. It's vulnerability is absolutely critical. And Bex, the point you said about, creative vulnerability. I mean, I have it. That's a quote I stole from Ken Robinson. It's on my website that, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you will never come up with anything original. That's always been a mantra for me. It's like, it doesn't matter what it is, every creative pursuit, unless you go so safe that it is boring, there's this element of risk. And it may be that it dies a death and doesn't work, or that, actually you create something you're very proud of and no one else likes it. But it's a gamble. It's a gamble every time. So yes, definitely something I need to read for both those aspects. So thank you. Well, staying on the note of creativity then, what are the creative things you've made or done that you're most proud of?
Oh, it's difficult. We've been on the Lucky Fox journey now for about 2 years. Both of us having come from very different careers before. As we said, Steph was in charity and I was a software engineer. So we started Lucky Fox about 2 years ago, and we've done a lot in that time, all of which we're proud of. So it's difficult to point to any one thing, but I mean, today we finally delivered on a project that's been a long time in the making, and that's quite a special one. That's our first board game that we've made.
So we were approached by a group of therapists, and this was through my kind of charity sector connections, and they deliver family therapy in Norfolk and Suffolk. And the therapists themselves, when working with the families, had realized how great games were for working with the whole family, and had invented little games that they were playing, that they were printing out on A4 pieces of paper and putting in front of the families, and, like move your little cardboard piece around this home printed board. And they thought, actually, let's see if we can professionalize this. So they asked us whether we could consult with them around professionalizing it, designing it, managing the manufacture. And so we did. So it's a 3 board games in one, plus feeling spinner, plus some kind of picture cards, this sort of stuff. So a real toolkit for the therapist to be able to use. But the whole process just was really beautiful because it drew on both of our kind of strengths from the creative sense and from our other skills that we've developed over life. So kind of running design workshops with them, you know, consulting on color and style and accessibility, which is what Bex is really, you know, her background is really great in. And then actually the whole thing of putting the whole thing together, we 3D printed, because it was a short run board game, we 3D printed the pieces ourselves, learned how to use an airbrush, painted, lacquered, you know, created, and got the rest of it kind of made up from a manufacturer, put it all together, and delivered it today. And just knowing that those games are going to be changing the dynamics in families and changing lives of people, and the way that those relationships develop is just incredible when you think about that.
Everyone hopes, I think, in every creative thing that they do, that it will have an impact, you know, that someone will consume whatever this thing is, whether it's listening to music, whether it's playing a game, whether it's reading a book, and their life will be enriched somehow by it. But generally it's more of an abstract sort of thing, but that's wonderful that it's something that is so very grounded in this is what it's going to do in therapy. That's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels really good. And that we just got it done. That feels good.
It does. It was a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
We've
learned a lot.
Organizing and communication, and
But I think that's it. Like Bex said, you know, everything that we've done, I think we're proud of. And I guess drawing on your point before, you know, there are things where I listen back to some of the music that I created when we first started Lucky Fox, and there are parts of it that I cringe at, and there are parts of it that I'm like, wow, like look at that development that has happened since then. There's always something that you can appreciate in the things that you've done, because you're constantly learning from those things and building on them, and you wouldn't be where you are now if you hadn't created those things and learned those lessons.
Last question then. Finally, could you please tell us your favorite inoffensive, grown-worthy dad jokes?
Okay, so I'm leaving this one to Bex, because Bex is the ultimate dad joker in this relationship. My preference, just to give you an idea, is to do more like practical kind of punny things.
Okay.
For example, when Bex was you needed a treat. I think you'd had a bad day at work at some point. And so I came home and I knelt down on one knee and I pulled out a box with a ring in it, and it was a donut. And she was just like,
you're like, I got you a ring. And I was like, and then you pulled out a donut. And I was pleased to see a donut, but also
that's the type of jokes that I would make.
Yeah.
Bex is much better on the dad jokes.
I'm a big fan of the long form joke, because that's my dad's preferred format, and he's very, very good at it. I don't think this is one that he actually told me. I think this is one that I heard elsewhere. I'm not sure if it's my own original material, but, you know. So there is a man who has very recently become a father. His wife has just given birth to their first child. And his father, now the grandfather, invites him round to the old family home for whiskey and celebration. And as they're sat there in the living room, the grandfather turns to his son and says, you know, son, now that you yourself are a father, I think it's about time that I passed on to you the family heirloom that my father passed on to me when your mother had you. And the son gasps and he goes, you don't mean? And the grandfather goes, yes, yes. And he gets up from his armchair and he crosses over to the mantelpiece and he opens an ornate silver box and pulls out gently a copy of 1001 Dad Jokes, first edition, which he hands over to his son. And his son takes the book, tears in his eyes. It's a very emotional moment. And he goes, wow, this is just, I don't know what to say. I'm honored. And his father goes, high honored. I'm Dad.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's layers of dads. That's one of my favorites.
Multi-layered
Yeah.
dad.
My dad as well is a huge fan of the longer jokes that just, it's like, really? Are we still going with this? Okay, but inevitably, I was gonna say inevitably they're worth it. I think they're worth it, but you know, I think that the pain and suffering that it took to get to the punchline certainly adds to it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, you know they've been honed over years as well. Like
Yeah.
my dad's, I've heard them so many times before.
Mm.
So it's very rare that we'll get that enjoyable situation where there's someone in the room who hasn't heard this one before. But you know that it's just worth listening all the way through because he has like honed the story and perfected it over years. So yeah, it's always great.
He was very excited when Bex first brought me home. There are so many
like a new victim.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
If folks have enjoyed these insights into the brains of Lucky Fox Studio, where can they find you on the internet?
So we are on Threads and Instagram as Lucky Fox Tabletop. You can find us on X and Patreon at Lucky Fox Studio, and our website is luckyfoxstudio.com.
Threads is the most entertaining because Bex does the Threads account, and
I'm
often
unsupervised.
she's unsupervised. So I would recommend the Threads account.
Stream of consciousness stuff and terrible memes mostly. But yeah.
What more could you ask for? Marvelous. And thank you out there for watching and or listening to this. I'm DC Bradshaw, and this has been Shought Thorts Duo with Bex and Steph of Lucky Fox Studio. Hope you have an amazing day. Take care.
Take care.